You can do it. You can go create. Just get to it. I promise you'll feel great. Because life can get ugly, and art sure can too. What matters is to do it. Let those feelings flow through you.
Hello, welcome back to the Ugly Podcast. It's me, your host, Laura Alexander. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm going to keep using they, them pronouns forever, unless I decide to change it at some point. But you know what? Screw you. I use they, them pronouns, and we exist. Okay, hi, guess what's going on in the world? Bad things. I am sitting in my my office today. For anybody who has been following along on this journey, I am fully moved in to my girlfriend's house now, and I have fully set up our office area. There's still some like mess here and there, but otherwise we got art on the walls. It's great. And today I'm wearing a striped button-up shirt. I kind of look like a train conductor, and I love it. And otherwise, if you listen frequently, you know what I look like. I'm your white androgynous curly-haired weirdo with big old glasses. And I've got an excellent guest for you today. My guest I met at an art show or an art exhibition, art
both
Christmas market, all of the above, here in Tacoma, and we got to chatting, and I'm just really excited to introduce them to you. They are an LGBTQ Tacoma inhabitant with a passion for making art more accessible to the general public. She loves ways to make people smile and think with everything from a painting to an especially awful dad joke. Welcome. Can you please introduce yourself with your name, your pronouns, and what we're looking at?
Absolutely.
That was a weird way to say that.
Hey, you're good. Hi, guys. My name is Alyssa Ryann, and I use she, they pronouns, so either one works. And yes, I'm also going to keep using those, so screw you. It's all good. But yeah, I'm a local Tacoma artist, and I've been in the Tacoma Lakewood area the vast majority of the past 20 years. I grew up down in Lakewood, and I've kind of been doing art since I was old enough to hold a pen. I've always been really confused by the question, when did you become an artist? Because some people have an answer. I don't. I simply
You're
do
like,
not remember
I was born into this artist body.
Exactly. Like, I remember being like 4 years old and getting in trouble because my mom had an apple slicer, and it had like this cover, and it was one of the ones you push down and the apples come up and they're all separated.
Yeah.
Well, I had taken a pen and I had drawn on the inside of like the apple slicer, and my brother snitched on me, and I got grounded for like a week
Rude.
over it. I was so angry. But I've been holding a pen and trying to create and express since I could walk and talk. I've been a storyteller since I was fully verbal at a young age, and my mom tells me that I used to walk around at 18 months telling stories about pumpkins and skeletons. So I really prioritize storytelling. And the thing about storytelling that I feel like a lot of people don't value and appreciate is that storytelling is a huge aspect of every single thing that we do with our lives, and it's kind of how we frame it, and it has the ability to alter our perception in ways most people just skip right over. You can take a story, you can twist it and make it something beautiful, you can twist it and make it something horrible. And when you tell a story, whether it's your life experience, that of someone else's, you can do that through any medium. You can do it through a painting, you can do it through a drawing, you can do it through a crocheted piece, you can do it through anything, including words. And words are very powerful, which is one of the reasons I'm so excited to be on here today, because I love getting to use my words. And as you can already tell, I talk a lot, so this works beautifully.
I love it. Yeah, like I love that there are people who didn't have my experience, because like I have a lot of people on this podcast who are also like, oh yeah, like I also did not know that I was creative, some teacher or some parent or some peers or whatever told me I was no good, and I believed them. And like it always breaks my heart how true that is for so many people. So then when I find people who are like, no, yeah, I've been making art since I could breathe, speak, like since I came into this world. I'm like, oh, thank God there are people who didn't have my experience.
Well,
like,
don't get
just,
me wrong. I absolutely had
Oh,
my
I
fair
don't-
share of naysayers and lots of
Sure.
like people who would steal my drawings in school and like graffiti them right in front of me. And I love my mom. Her parenting style was she'd look at my drawing and say, "Wow, that's improved from last time." She didn't actually give me my first compliment on my art until I was like in high
Oh.
school, and I specifically remember because it was such a big deal. But luckily for me, I won the freaking lottery when it comes to the dad department. And so my dad has been an amazing support for me throughout my entire artistic journey, my whole life. He's been a great sounding board, everything from the first short story I had published to he's the one who goes with me to art shows and carries my stuff and helps me set up my booth. And he's been my cheerleader. And I feel like if you have one person who will stand with you, it makes all the difference in the world. And so my dad, I love him. He has his own stuff, and I always feel like he doesn't understand how amazing of a dad he is because he's tired all the time, and so he doesn't get the impact that he's had on my life and the life of all of my siblings. There's a lot of us. There's 4 of us in total, and he's awesome. So my family definitely played a big role, and I don't take that for granted in the slightest. But yeah, no, creation, the way my brother puts it, he puts it the best, which is that I have Genesis power, which means that I don't have the ability to not create ideas. I simply breathe and exist, and the ideas are there. And how to describe how they interact with my brain and how they show up, it makes me sound like a crazy person. But it's almost like I look around the world and I see snapshot frozen moments where it's like you put a filter on the world and suddenly it's a painting. And it's like, oh, this is how I would frame this feeling. This is how I would frame this moment. This is how I would express this. And it comes through in all mediums. Sometimes it's painting, sometimes it's poetry, sometimes it's a short story. But it's just these little snapshot moments coming at me so fast I can't capture them all, ways that I would express this and express this and express this. And it's to the point where if I don't create things, my mental health suffers and my physical health suffers, and I start struggling. And so it's a very interesting perspective because I almost have like a deep empathy and respect for those people who didn't come from that, because I have this curiosity of, okay, what does your process look like? How does it differ from mine? And it just makes me want to dig in and learn more. And I have a fascination with the human experience. And so I just want to know how everybody's experiences differ. And it's, there's a lot going on, lots of layers. And I could talk forever on art and creativity and expression. It's dangerous.
Yeah, that's so good. Okay, really quick. So if anybody's listening to this and they're like, oh, that could never be me, like my brain doesn't work like that, I just want to touch on this because like as you were talking about like the way that you see things and like have these ideas come to you and like this like birth and generation of ideas, like that I didn't used to have that. And like I used to feel that like stuck feeling of like I didn't experience the world like that. It was very much like I stayed in this very safe zone that wasn't curious. And so if you are listening to this podcast, you know that like I like I wasn't always like this. It can be a learned experience. Like not everyone will experience it exactly as Alyssa is saying, but like I have like the more that I get curious about what I can make, the more like I do notice myself having those moments of like, wow, I just appreciate this moment so much more. And I'm like, this is inspiring some kind of words or poetry or some kind of vision that I want to then put out into the world. And it's cool. It's really fucking cool that you can like learn this and practice it regularly. And it's not just something that is totally inaccessible to like the artist type. It's like, no, it's a human characteristic. Like, yes, all of our brains work differently. Your type, like your flavor of artistry or creativity is going to be different than Alyssa's, different than mine. But like, it's the human experience to be curious and creative. And it's a skill that can be fostered and tended to.
So that makes me wonder, did you have a specific moment or experience that helped either unlock that creativity or really help drive that creativity that shifted the way you think about things to help access more of that, as my brother says, idea genesis?
Yeah, it wasn't just one moment.
Well, since they have disappeared, I will tell a dad joke. What do you call a dog on a submarine? A subwoofer.
I can't remember where I left off.
Actually, I was gonna say, so what you were talking about was the importance of saying yes to yourself and saying yes to your ideas.
Mhm.
And I love that you brought that up, because that is a personal life philosophy of mine that I've never heard anybody else
Mm.
use. And
Oh,
I loved
I love
hearing
it.
you talk about your ugly art too, because that is how I have always been as an artist. I am not, I know that it's a very common trend when being an artist to focus on perfection, but I've got ADHD and I've got autism. As a human being experiencing life, I myself am not perfect, and I have never been concerned with perfection. Good enough and doing my best, which changes every day, that is enough for me. And so one of my favorite paintings that I ever made is a painting called Wind Blown Girl. It was my very first time ever using oil, and I did the entire thing using a palette knife. And I love palette knives because they are so imperfect when it comes to creation. And
Yeah.
I originally had this one vision, and it just kept failing and it kept not working, and I kept trying to rework it, and the paint was just getting thicker and thicker, and with oil it doesn't dry for like 3 months. And I got a fresh palette, I got my knife, and I just started stacking and swishing, and I created this, the art style. What I like to call it is, I like to say I do abstract fauvistic portraits, which basically breaks down to creating images of people that are not naturally colored, aren't cartoons, but also aren't realistic. And so
Mm.
they have some interesting textures and colors that you wouldn't normally see in a portrait of a person. And I just was smacking at it and smacking at it. And finally, I looked at it and I realized that I had created this incredible painting full of life and movement, where you could see this hope and despair on this facial expression while everything was drawn together and moving. And it became my favorite piece. And to this day, I painted that 6 years ago, I think. To this day, it is still my all-time favorite painting I've ever created. And it was created out of this moment of chaos and stress and imperfection. And whether I'm working with ceramics, so ceramics especially, paint, drawing, I make so many mistakes all the time. It's always a hot mess. And it's like Bob Ross says, little mistakes turn into happy little trees or
Yep.
whatever.
Happy
I
little
have
trees,
taken
yeah.
that mentality to heart deeply, and so nothing I ever make is perfect. And
Mm.
sometimes it messes with me a little bit, where I'm like, oh, I don't like that one because this could have been different, or this could have been different. And other ones, like Windblown Girl, I look at it, I'm like, that is an expression of me and my mess and my
Mm.
beauty, and I love that. And again, about the open doors, I as a kid growing up, we were on food stamps. We didn't have a lot of income. And so it was really hard for me and my family to go out and do traditional adventures. Like, we didn't get to go out to dinner. We didn't go to movies. We had our house, but that was it. We were basically limited to the things within our house and the free programs put on by schools. And I learned very early on as a kid to that it's okay to accept help, and that it's okay to say yes. And through saying yes, I ended up with all kinds of incredible adventures. Like, I went to a program put on by the University of Washington Tacoma every summer, where I got to do math and science and leadership, and it was all free. You got like a day trip to a
Nice.
water park and all kinds of cool stuff. And a lot of it was science based, but when I was 16, I had a cover of 7 Years Old by Lucas Graham, produced by an Emmy nominated producer. Like, just because that was, we were doing music that year, and we met him, and he was amazing and super awesome. And somewhere floating around on my email, there's a copy of me singing something that's like really well produced. And I've ended up with these exquisite adventures. And all I ever did was just say yes. Why not put in the application for this? Why not? I mean, worst thing they're going to do is say no. And so I have two really big life philosophies. And the first one is, if the odds are 1 in a million, why can't I be the one? What's stopping me from being the one? Someone has to get it. So why can't it be me? And I've been to space camp, like at the U.S. Rocket Center in Alabama. I got a full ride scholarship.
Amazing.
Because I talked about how I wanted to be the kind of person who used art as a way to translate science into a language that everyone can understand. And they're like, okay, sure. So I was the only artist in a room of 100 science and STEM kids. And I got one of 20 scholarships with over 3,000 applicants across the country. So there are amazing things that you can do for art, for your life, if you just bother to say yes. And why not? That space camp, I found out about that 2 days before the application was due. And there was like a whole video essay you had to do and edit it and everything. And I just said, yeah, why not? That sounds like fun. May as well try my best. And it is just incredible, the things that, you know, can happen for you when you say yes. And it makes me so happy that you have the same, like, philosophy, because I don't know very many people who say that. You know, it's such a beautiful thing, and it leads to a very full, rich life.
And it's a new day now. If you're listening to this, that might just sound a little random, but if you're watching this, you will see that we are in new clothes now. We had some technical difficulties and had to cut our last conversation, well, the first part of this conversation short. So we're kind of re-entering the conversation where we left off. So yeah, now I'm in a kind of Mr. Rogers cardigan. Otherwise, I look the same.
Hey, it's a good way to describe it.
What about you, Alyssa?
Well, I have I'm a little bit of a huge Taylor Swift fan, so I have my Speak Now cardigan on, and you know, blue long sleeve shirt and some very comfortable, like, grandma floral pattern sweatpants. And my blue hair is nice and wavy today, which makes me feel good. I love it when my hair does fun things. So, you know, gotta keep it
looks
fresh.
Amazing. You look like a merfolk.
I know, right? In the sunlight, the green comes out a little bit more, because I put like 5 different shades in when I dyed it a couple months ago, and so it like changes color in different light, and it makes me feel like a mermaid princess all the time, and we love that little extra zhuzh, you know.
Yeah. Oh, so good. Okay, so we were talking about just like how saying yes to yourself and yes to your creative ideas is this like beautiful expression of love for yourself. And I started really feeling this because as I started like making that ugly art and stuff, and like I'd notice like an idea pop into my head, and instead of being like, oh, you know, oh yeah, that would be a fun idea, or like, oh yeah, that's, you know, I just completely ignoring it, I started being like, oh, I could do that idea. And like, if I'm scared that I'm going to mess it up, I could just make it ugly on purpose at first. And like, then if I want to do it again, I can. And so then like, and as I started saying yes in that way of like, yeah, I can, and it can be bad or it can be whatever it wants to be. And then I started noticing like this really like this little part of me started feeling so like warm and like accepted and loved whenever I did that. And it's just like, oh, I've just been rejecting so many ideas from myself for so long. And it really, there's just so much self-love there, in saying, yes, I do deserve this. Yes, I deserve to have my weird little ideas come out on paper or be molded into clay or whatever you're going to do with them. So yeah, I love that we share that philosophy. It's really beautiful.
Oh, absolutely. And one of my favorite things too about that mentality of saying yes, especially when it comes to artistic creative expression, is that you learn so much from yourself in the process. Like some of the paintings, for example, that I am by far the most proud of came from those weird little ideas, and it's like, well, would this even work? Like a couple months ago, I was making this painting, and I wanted it to it's a relatively large painting, but on the front it's a white figure that's, looks like they have like water dripping out of their hands, but I wanted them to look a little bit more ghostly. And I didn't feel like using oil because that was going to take forever. And so I got this random idea. I was like, what if we took acrylic paint and watered it down like watercolors? I wonder how that would go. And it's
Yeah.
actually become like my go-to focal point piece when I do art booths and stuff. And it's very popular. I have a lot of people talk to me about this one piece. And I never would have done that if I had been like, oh, see, that's a dumb idea. And I was like, but what if? And again, it was when we were talking about like Windblown Girl at our last recording session. That was another one of those like, well, what if? And you just say yes, and it really does give you the chance to say yes to yourself. And it's exactly like you said, it's a beautiful way of showing yourself that you do care what you feel, and it resonates in a different way than, just doing the same thing that you're used to over and over and over again.
Yeah. And like you also learn in doing that, you learn like what you like.
Mm-hmm.
Like especially if you're somebody who doesn't really know yourself that well, if you're like, well, like I'm not really sure what my style is, or I'm not sure how I like to express myself, like exploring that and saying yes to like those different little creative thoughts, it helps you be like, oh yeah, I do like this, I like this color, I like this texture, I love this medium.
Yep.
Or I don't like that texture, I don't like that color, I don't like. You
Yeah.
learn those, and like you really solidify like who you are and how you want to express yourself. Like making art is how I realized I was queer, because I like started making art and started realizing what more was inside of me, and I was like, oh, there's a lot in here that I just like haven't been paying attention to and haven't been saying yes to.
Yeah.
And now that I am, I'm like, oh, it's all here, and I can explore it and I can figure it out and I can see what I like. It's amazing.
I will admit I had a little bit of a similar experience in that I discovered how much I love illustrating women. Just the natural like curves of women and their facial expressions, and I do not have a mutual like joy of expressing images of men, and that definitely led to some personal questions.
You're like, I wonder why.
Why is it that I love drawing and painting women? And here we are several years later, we're like, it's just because women are beautiful and women are awesome.
It's just because women are beautiful.
Women are so beautiful, man. I will get so distracted, and I love that my partner and I will be walking down the street, and I'll like wave to some woman, I'll be like, give her a compliment on something, and then we'll just like look at each other and both be like, oh my gosh, wasn't she so pretty? And we'll just both kind of like gossip about it for a minute, and then we'll just go about our day. It's never like a weird moment. It's just kind of like a, okay, girl, and then you just keep on going. And it's really special to be able to just celebrate the beauty of people. That's something I feel like is it's something that's really well captured by really more classic older art, especially in like statuary, is just the simple elegant beauty of humanity. And I feel like a lot of that has been lost over time, where art changes and develops, and it doesn't have the same, I don't know if it's not honorific, that's not the word I'm looking for, but there's a certain way that the human experience was treasured in art that we don't see it the same way anymore. And so it just gives me a really deep appreciation for not just the amazing modern art that we get to see all the time that's always emerging, but it gives me a soft spot for the classics too, and just that creative expression. And I mean, art has lasted longer than any empire in the world. It's one of the most powerful and dangerous things that was ever created by the human mind. I mean, art can fuel a political movement. It can, warm your heart. It can inspire you, make you think about new things. Art is revolutionary, and it's incredible. And it always has been. And it's going to last longer than any current surviving civilization. I mean, we have statues from the Romans and the Greeks that have survived thousands of years to today, and it makes me wonder what kind of art I would want to create that would transcend generations and centuries. What kind of thing would I want to leave behind for posterity? I mean, it's kind of a cool thing to think about when we think of older art newer art and how they merge and how they differ. And it's just a fun thing I like to think about too, and it's a great place you can pull other inspiration from. What is it, the common
Yeah.
saying, there's no such thing as an original idea, everything's inspired by something.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, everything is inspired by something.
yeah.
And like so many things, so many things have been discovered. Things have been like, there's this thing about like, however I've talked about this on this podcast before, but it's like there's only so many like combinations of like musical notes, because there's only
Yep.
so many musical notes. And there's like scientists who have like like my girlfriend would be able to tell me the specifics. She's not in bed right now. But it was like like the combination of those has already been like mathematically revealed. And so really it's about artists uncovering and rediscovering for themselves, and then interpreting it in their new ways and adding their own little unique spark to it that makes it different, that makes it unique. But like, there is no like truly unique idea. If you're waiting for something truly unique in order to make it, like like
Plus,
there's
yeah,
I mean, there's so many like like you're unique, like you are unique, that's what makes it unique. And so like you have to just like make it, and that is, then you're doing the thing. Yeah.
no, absolutely. And it always, something that I hem and I haw with, especially recently, is the increase in AI generated art. And there's kind of a quote floating around on
Mm-hmm.
the internet that's something along the lines of, I want AI to do my dishes and laundry so that I have time to do my art, not for AI to do my art so I have time to do my dishes and laundry. And
Yeah.
you know, just talking, more on art that transcends time and everything, I don't feel like art is as valued as it was a long time ago. And
Mm-hmm.
I have a train of thought and it's slowly slipping away from me. I've got to chase this bad boy
Oh.
down because it was a really good one.
Uh-huh.
But with AI art and everything, art is becoming so mass produced by computers that I feel like it doesn't necessarily draw away from artists, because there is an element of uniqueness to everything that's created, but it kind of breaks my heart to see art without the human spark to it, you know and
Yeah.
for people who don't necessarily have the skill to draw what they have in mind, or they haven't practiced painting, so they're maybe not able to do those smooth edges and lines that they would want. AI as a generative process can be very beneficial, especially as a learning tool, but more and more I feel like I'm seeing, like, for Christmas my little sister got a puzzle, and it was a cat puzzle, had a whole bunch of cats on it, but you could tell that the image was AI generated because every single cat, it was like cats on a bookshelf, but every single cat was done in a
Mm-hmm.
different style. And not in like a intentional way. It was like this cat has 5 legs and is a completely different fur texture than this cat, which looks like it's got a bright sunlight on its face. And you can tell that it was created by AI. And that's fine. But I personally, when shopping for something like that, I would have wanted something that was created maybe by an artist where they're getting paid by the copyright. Something. So I have this concern that the more that AI and other technologies that mimic art develop, we as humans are going to get to create less of it, because there's going to be even less of a need than people already think there is.
Mm-hmm.
Now, humans need art to survive. That's an acknowledgement. Art is vital to everything. It's in the sciences. It's used in everything from engineering to architecture. It's used simply to make people happy. It's used in color theory, psychology. Art is vital to our human survival, and yet it is so undervalued, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
as the way, sorry, that was a little cameo from Cinnamon. She just
cat bye.
she and Gracie were wrestling behind my laptop a minute ago, and they like bumped it, and I was like, okay. And then Cinnamon's like, fly by. It's what I get for having 3 cats. So
Yeah.
and then Alphaba's on the bookshelf, like being a weirdo, so it's all good. But it's a fear and a curiosity to see how art develops and changes with new technology, political movements, that kind of thing, and just see how it evolves. Everything does. The only constant is change, but I don't want it to go extinct, because art is so precious.
Yeah.
I wish I could just zap into everyone's mind on the whole planet. You know how there's like that whole question of like, if you could like project one thought into every single person's head on the planet, what would it be? And
Yeah.
you get to like, you have like 3 sentences. Mine would be like, art is vital. Support local artists. Bring more art into your
Yeah.
life. Boom. Whole world. Everyone gets more art. We call it good. We move on.
I love that. I think mine would probably be similar. It would be like, make more art. Like, you
Yes.
make art. Yes, you. Yes, you who thinks you're not an artist.
Oh
make
my
art.
gosh. My biggest pet peeve is when people look at your art and they're like, oh, I could never. I'm not an artist. And it's like,
I could never.
but you are
Yeah.
an artist. The difference is I've
Mhm.
practiced for 15 years. I started out
Mhm.
exactly where you are now. There is no excuse for you not to be able to do this. You just have to be
Mhm.
willing to put in the 15,000 hours that I did. You know, you put in that effort,
Mhm.
you're gonna get there. That's how it works. And it
Yeah.
boggles my mind when people think that they're not artists. I'm like, didn't you decorate your home? That's art.
Right?
Didn't you plant your garden?
Yeah.
That's art.
Didn't you dress yourself this morning?
Didn't you freaking dress yourself this morning? That's art.
Right.
Didn't you do your makeup? That's art.
Uh-huh.
Like,
yeah.
It's vital for survival. I need to make that a t-shirt. Okay, coming soon. Art, vital for survival t-shirt, Alyssa Ryann on Etsy. We're gonna make it happen. It'll be like the Ugly
do.
Podcast exclusive. Like we're gonna make it happen.
Ooh.
You know, we'll do like a little promo code so anybody who like listens on the podcast, you know, go to a little caption or whatever. We'll get a promo code. I'll make a special t-shirt. Like, art is vital for survival.
Future lore here to tell you that Alyssa actually did make that shirt, and it will be available through the link down in the show notes. If you use the code UGLYART, you'll get 20% off of a shirt that says art is vital for survival. So go check it out. Okay, back to the episode. Bye. Art is vital for survival. Title of the episode.
Oh, I love that.
Yes. Yes.
we love those
So
candid moments.
Yes. Okay. Before we get too carried away with our conversation, because I feel like we could just talk about this forever. Let's make some ugly art together.
Yes.
And while we're doing that, I know it's kind of hard to like make and talk, but if you'd like, I would love to chat about like what you mentioned earlier about how like art will extend and endure past like through empire, through all kinds of revolutions, through all kinds of political movements, and you know, the trash fire that we're living in now. Like art will be with us through the heat death of the universe. So like how, like what's something that you have on your mind right now about like your art and how you want your art to like fuel your own resistance and just like contribute to this time that we're in?
Yeah.
And before you answer
I know, I'm like thinking there's like there's a whole bunch of little teeny tiny baby trains of thought. None of them are enough to make a sentence, but they're there and they're coming together. So we'll see.
Perfect. Well, while those are coming together, for the kind of art making, I like to just kind of, if something's on your mind and you want to run with it, go for it. But usually I like to let my hand kind of guide me in some kind of scribble, just like whatever feels good in my body. And then I just kind of expand on it and like, how ugly can I make this? And how weird can I make this? Or like, what is drawing my attention? So that's kind of just like what I like to do. If that sounds good to you, excellent. If you have a different process that you want to engage in now, please do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, and we'll just chat and we'll do this for like five-ish minutes.
Yeah.
And then
I
keep chatting.
One of my favorite things about starting any piece of art, no matter what it is that it always starts very ugly. I get my little pencil and I will just block it like you would a play, right? I start with like, you know, the little bits, and then I'll do just like, here's a circle for a head. Here's a triangle for someone's torso. And then, you know, map out the whole thing while it's in that chaotic glory. And then you start bringing it together. And when you start off ugly, it's beautiful because it helps you get the vision on the page without giving a flying rat's behind what the end project is going to look. My cats are wrestling behind my computer again. Synonym. Oh my goodness. Okay. since she's being a gremlin, she gets to have a cameo. This is Cinnamon. She
Hi,
is my
Cinnamon.
baby. She's about 8 months old. And she is best friends with my dog, Casper, who's a little fluffy white Pomeranian. And she is having a zoomies moment, which is why she's got those big eyes right now. So I'm just gonna let her run away and hide. But yeah, she keeps initiating fight, like wrestling playtime with my other cat, who's happily sleeping behind my computer. So, but yes, no. Anyway, ugly is like the beginning of every piece of art I've ever done, and so it's one of the reasons I like love this so much, because it doesn't have to be perfect, let alone in the very beginning when you're only figuring it out. So
exactly.
But art that transcends empires. I think the most important thing about having art that transcends empires is that it says something about the humans who made it, right? And I feel like the message behind the art is just as important as the actual piece itself. Because, you have some things like Van Gogh's Sunflowers, where it's just an absolutely stunning piece. I have no idea if Van Gogh's Sunflowers was actually supposed to, like, say something, or if it's just absolutely gorgeous. And then you have, other pieces like Julius Caesar getting stabbed, and maybe the message is something along the lines of "Don't be a dictator," So it's one of those. There's things with beautiful composition where we keep around just because people are ravens and we love our shiny objects, and then there's things that people keep around because of nostalgia, like the Mona Lisa, and ones that we keep around because we genuinely believe in what they have to say. I just know that if I were going to create something, I would want it to be a combination of all of it. I would want it to be something beautiful that, it's like people with their shiny little ravens and they just want to, have it around. And I'd also want to have it be something that made someone somewhere along the path think that maybe there was a different way they could be doing what it is that they're doing now.
Absolutely. I like the different categories and the because there's a lot of different reasons why art resonates with us, and especially it's interesting because I keep hearing a lot of activists and just people online, artists saying art is revolutionary, make your art, and I think some people might think that means that the art itself has to be political. And I don't think that that's necessarily true. Obviously, I do think art should be political, and some art should be political. But I also think that making your art in a time when expression and freedoms are being limited and restricted and forced into boxes, that you making your weird little art is you taking a stand and being I'm still here and I'm still me, and the government can't tell me who I am.
Exactly. Or
and that is such an important thing for you to remind yourself constantly in order to survive where we're at, and then also push toward freedom.
Because it is so easy right now to feel like, and I find myself caught in this trap almost daily, where I feel like there's nothing I can do. Who's gonna listen to me? I'm just one single weird blue-haired girl in the middle of a liberal city with too many cats. Why would anybody bother listening to what I have to say?
Yeah.
But why wouldn't people? If I'm interesting and engaging and I genuinely care, what's stopping people from listening to me? And even if my little thing, my one way of speaking is, maybe posting something I drew on Facebook or Instagram, or sending it to a friend, or, having it in a magazine, or whatever it looks like, sharing that art is absolutely a megaphone, especially if it's the right way to share it. And in a time when it's so easy to feel depressed because you feel voiceless, art is such a wonderful way to scream out into the void and surprise yourself when how many people call right back to you saying that they stand with you.
Yeah, absolutely. The rustling sounds from the cats is so funny.
They are so in my room, which is where we are right now, to everybody who's listening. I have 2 different cat trees, and I have one of those little like window platforms. And so one of my cats is Elphaba, and we only just moved in here like a couple months ago, so there's still a couple boxes. So Elphaba is sitting on a stack of boxes, jumping in between the cat tree and the stack of boxes. Cinnamon is hanging out on the window right next to the stack of boxes, trying to knock over the stack of boxes where Elphaba is currently perched. However, the stack of boxes, the bottom box, has books in it. So it's not going anywhere because Cinnamon's only 7 pounds. She's not gonna knock over the pile of boxes, but she is going to try. Meanwhile, Gracie, my oldest, is calmly sitting on my bed, right behind my laptop, watching the absolute shenanigans that are happening between Elphaba and Cinnamon right now. It's a miracle we can't also hear my dog barking in the background, so we're doing good as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, absolutely. When I first started this podcast with my friend Emerson, their dogs were always barking in the background, and we were just like, well, it's called the Ugly Podcast for a reason. There's going to be dogs barking, and there's nothing we can do about it.
And you know, there comes a time where it's like, even if you could do something about it, would you really want to? Because it's like how, like, the common practice now is like when you're in Zoom meetings and stuff and everybody has their cat secretly on their lap and then you have like cat show and tell in the middle of the meeting. I can't even tell you how many like professional meetings I've been in where one of my cats will show up, the whole meeting stops, everybody wants to say hi to my cats. And in some cases, like, it won't even faze my coworkers anymore. They'll just be like, hey, Cinnamon. And Cinnamon looks and she's like, why is my name coming from this metal thing? And she just gets so confused. And it's the funniest thing in the whole entire world. But
Amazing.
We were talking about the importance of personal speech and voice and reflection through art. And actually, what really came to mind was the imagery of Medusa movement. If you know what I'm talking about.
I don't think I do.
Where Medusa is like,
I mean, I know
symbolically used for tattoos and stuff as like a. Do you know the story of Medusa, right?
Yeah. I didn't know if this was like a movement in of itself or if it was just like people using Medusa imagery.
It's becoming a movement
as a specific.
So it started off as imagery as a way for, you know, I don't know if I can say this, you might have to edit it out, but it started off as a way for SA survivors to claim their power back for themselves, because the story of Medusa is that, you know, Poseidon kind of had his way with her in Athena's temple, and Athena punished Medusa because she couldn't punish a god and turned her into a gorgon. And so the idea is that a lot of survivors of that kind of situation will, you know, they'll do a Medusa tattoo, or they'll have a painting hung up in their house or whatever. And it's a very powerful reclaiming energy. And since a lot of recent political things have arisen, it's kind of grown into not just those types of survivors, but women overall in general saying, you can't take our rights from us. You know, it's that like, hey, we're still here, we still matter, we are valid in our feelings, we have rights, you know, you will not silence us, you will not stop us from telling our story. And the more it grows and the more powerful it gets, like every time I see, because I see so much incredible art like everywhere, whether it's social media or just walking around, or my friends will send me something they're working on, and there's something to me that's deeply resonating and really powerful about a lot of the Medusa imagery that I've seen, especially in the past like 2 months or so. And it kind of, if we're talking about art being a revolution, when you see the art, it makes you want to stand with the artist. But it also, you also get a little bit of human empathy because you want to know their story. so you can bond.
Mm-hmm.
You can exchange those war stories and realize that you're not alone in your experience. And I feel like the best revolutions are based on a footing of unity from just the simple everyday people. And when we see that,
Mm-hmm.
we both have a Medusa story to tell and have the opportunity to come together and, you know, share that story. I feel like it just helps us come even more into our power. And it makes me curious if at some point, like, Medusa imagery is just going to be straight up not allowed anymore, you know? Where it's like,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like when is censorship going to come into play? And like we know it
it
already
already
does. Like
does.
censorship is already such a big thing. So like how far are they going to take it, and like how far? But that also, like, when you start censoring, it gives artists so much more power, I feel
Oh,
like,
it
because it's just like,
does.
oh, you're gonna make this illegal. Ooh boy, you're gonna have
As
that spray painted
Oh yeah,
everywhere.
it's like the Luigi Mangione like saint
Yes,
graffiti.
exactly.
I love that
Uh-huh.
so much. Cuz talk about powerful
Yes.
art. If you're saying that someone who
Yeah.
did something like that is equivalent to a saint in your perspective, it's like, there's probably a really
Mm-hmm.
good reason as to why that person has that perspective. Funny.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I'm just like, I am more likely to fling a salute that direction than I am at like
Right.
some more. I don't know how to say this tactfully. More traditional patriotic imagery.
Sure,
I'm
yeah.
much more
Okay,
likely
I
to
saw this.
support that.
Right. I saw this guy do a like you know that the picture that they posted of like all the cops
Yeah,
like
is it the
leading
Batman or the
Luigi.
Superman comparison where he's like,
No, it wasn't the Superman
oh,
comparison. It was like comparing it to the one of the famous paintings of like Jesus being like walked to the cross and
that's
just like
even
the Renaissance
better.
I know it's a Renaissance
Oh
painting,
my
and I'm just
god.
like, holy shit, that's so good.
I saw one that it was literally like the comparison of like Superman being locked in chains with like all the
Yeah.
police around him arresting him versus Luigi, and um, I again, art speaks so much. Like
Yeah.
we're we don't even need examples; they just exist in the conversation.
They're
They
just out
just
here. Yeah.
they're like Pokemon in the wild. They just naturally appear and we just catch them and we use them and it's great. So,
Yes.
no, art
Love it.
truly is powerful. I was out monkey shine hunting, and for those of you who are unfamiliar, it's a little bit of a local Tacoma tradition. Um, but I was out looking for monkey shines, and I was hiding some rogues the other day. Um, and there was a guy, and he was walking a very very sweet dog, and I asked if I could pet his dog, and he said yes, which is not the point of the story, but it's very important anyway. And
It's always
he
exciting.
was wearing a hat, and this was between our recording sessions, and so I was thinking about this. I was thinking about like our conversations when I saw this guy, and his hat was just a dark
Uh-huh.
green hat, and in yellow it just said "Art is dangerous." That's it.
Ooh, I
All
love
like
that.
bold embroidered block text, all caps. Art is
Uh-huh.
dangerous. And I've been thinking about that hat like all week because
Yeah.
it's true. Art is dangerous. It is one of the most dangerous things in the entire world. Art can incite people, it can encourage people, it can give hope, it can give energy, it can convey information. I mean, want to talk about some phenomenally used art and information? Let's talk about the Underground Railway. Like, they used quilts for
Mm.
communication.
Mm-hmm.
That is art saving lives. That is art as a form of communication.
Yeah.
Art is vital for survival. I'm going to say it again. Especially if it's going to be an episode name. Like, I feel like it needs to be brought up at least 2 more times. So,
Of course, you got
in
it.
appropriate places, of course. But it's just, I just love how powerful and amazing art is. And don't get me wrong, that's not like the big reason why I do it, but it's definitely something that's kept me going on it for a long time, if that makes sense. Because when you're
Yeah,
struggling to
absolutely.
feel like you have a voice, art is a great way to feel heard.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, and to exercise that voice
absolutely,
that you do have.
not everybody has a megaphone, but since I have one, I may as well use
No.
it. And art is my megaphone.
Absolutely. Okay, speaking of your megaphone, let's do you want to show me what you made?
Yeah. So we were talking about the Medusa art. So I was kind of working on a hidden so I did it in light blue, so it might be a little hard to see, but it's a human figure. Doesn't look as good on the camera as it does in person.
Ooh.
But it's a human figure, and I
mean,
was
it
going
looks beautiful
to.
from.
it's going to be a Medusa. I was going to have her walking with like her traditional like Greek armor. She's gonna have like a shield on that arm that's kind of extended forward. She's gonna have an aegis, which is of course, for those of you who did not go through a hyper fixation on Greek mythology phase in middle school like a lot of us did. And aegis was the sword, or the shield that Zeus had, that he made, or Perseus had. Somebody had a shield, right? And it had Medusa, like a cast iron of Medusa's face on it that would startle your foes and your enemies. So I'm literally creating a Medusa who has a shield with a picture of herself on it to use to scare people walking down a modern street. So
amazing.
we were talking about it, and I was like, that would be super interesting to see an illustration of. So that's what we have.
Yeah.
Right now it's a hot mess. The posture is driving me crazy. Like, it is irritating me that it does not line up. But it's ugly art. And guess what? Gorgons aren't real, which means that if I want to give her unrealistic posture, it fits and it works and it's beautiful. And
fits.
I'm just gonna go
fun.
with it. So what did you
my little
create?
guy. He's like a weird little worm up in the clouds with some lightning around him.
Okay.
He's got.
Did you also use blue?
Yeah.
Yes.
He's just a big old worm guy. He's so weird. I don't know what. It kind of has this like surprise look on his face. His eyebrows are like way up high. And I'm like imagining him being like, how the fuck did I get up in these clouds? And how do I get down?
Oh my gosh. I love him. He's so weird. He's awesome.
So shocking.
Yeah.
My sister-in-law.
What a shocking revelation that he was that high off the ground.
Yeah, we'll see.
Have you ever thought about illustrating a kid's book?
So
like,
spread out and sporadic right now.
Your
Anytime I try to
that would be so like your concept of ugly art
I
plus the
abandoned
little
it
doodles. That would be like the cutest
well, I guess I'm
book
just
ever.
not gonna do that.
Like,
so it's just gonna be
I don't have kids,
random
but
shit.
I'd vibe with that. I love that.
Ooh, yes. Ooh! Oh my gosh. So cute.
Oh, yeah. Oh, speaking of snakes, can I show you what I've been working on? So for Lunar New Year, I've been hiding snakes, and so I've been getting really good at crocheting snakes.
They're so cute. Yeah.
So this one's actually a commissioned order. I had a woman message me and she's like, "Hey, I love your snakes you've been hiding. Could I buy some for my grandkids?" I was like, "Absolutely."
Yes.
So I have this little green one. I have a purple one too, but the other eye isn't done yet. But they're just like little snaky dudes. Like, makes me want to make a snake that like has like little lightning bolts on it, Right? Give it like spiky teeth. I haven't figured so talk about ugly art. My crocheting is probably the ugliest art I make, and here's why. I taught myself how to crochet in the 6th grade. The only thing I knew how to do at the time, my mom taught me how to do a chain stitch when I was about 6 years old. By the time I was in middle school, I had made dozens of skeins of yarn into just skeins of chain stitch. Like, I didn't know how to do anything else. And one day I was in class because I've had ADHD. I still do. It's really, really bad. You could tell just by probably listening to this podcast. But I had all the ADHD. And so I would sit in class and I would just crochet chain stitches while I was listening to lectures. I had this fabulous English teacher. Her name is Mrs. Williams. And one day I was in her class. And this kid who did not like me, was kind of a bully, was like, can you make anything else than like those sad worms? And I was like, I wonder. I don't know if I could. He's like, I bet you can't make a doll. And I was like, okay, well, I had blue, and that was the only skein of yarn I had on me. So I undid all the chain stitch. I reballed my yarn, and I sat for the rest of class trying to figure out how to build on this single chain stitch. By the end of the school day, I had made a very misshapen human adjacent-ish figure with a very long torso, short, fat legs,
I love it.
little super skinny arms, and a very lopsided head. To this day,
it's a good snake. Yeah.
I only know how to do one stitch, and I don't know how to use a pattern. I have never used a pattern in my life. I know one stitch, and I just make it up as I go. So, like, for the snake, for example, this is a pretty good looking snake, right? But I used one stitch for this, and I don't know how to do anything else. I can't make things that are flat. Like, I can't make a sweater. I can't make a granny square. I can't make a scarf. I can't do any. But tell me to make a dinosaur, and I got you, and I'll just make it up. I will crochet these Brontosaurus dinosaurs, and before I can even finish it, I'll get like halfway through, and someone's already like, so I can buy that from you, right? I would sell them in my Etsy shop or like at fairs, but I can't keep them in stock. It's like as soon as I make one, somebody in the universe's little brain goes tingle, 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 and they're like, mine.
I love that.
But every single dinosaur I've ever made is completely different than every other dinosaur I've ever made. Every snake, it's just a snake. You'd think I'd follow the same steps, right? But no. Every snake is completely different. And they're just snakes. It's a tube. It's a tube with a face. So I call them my chaotic critters because every single thing I've ever crocheted is completely unique, completely different, no patterns. I just make it up. If I need the shape to get bigger, I just add more stitches. If I need it to get smaller, I shrink the stitches, and that's it. That's literally all there is to it. And I will do entire complex shapes using a single piece of yarn just because I can. And I taught myself how to do this in the 6th grade. And I've had people ask me, hey, can you teach me how to crochet? I'm like, absolutely not, because you have to have a 3-dimensional constructive engineering brain to like figure out how to 3D model and scale as you actively work through the piece and calculate how the string is going to pull to tighten and loosen in what areas. And if you can't do like
I love it so much. And then like that's one of the reasons why I like invited you on the podcast and we started talking in the first place too, was like I was looking through everything at your booth and everything was so different. Like you had just like nothing was like in the same style, nothing like everything was like a different style, a different medium, and I'm just looking around, I'm like, this is incredible. And then we started talking about just like, yeah, why would you choose? Like, why would you like make your brain do the same thing over and over again if it doesn't want to?
Boring.
Just like let your brain do what it wants to do.
Exactly.
It's amazing. I love it.
And, you know, when you were looking at my stuff, you got to see, you know, prints of drawings and paintings, actual drawings and paintings. You saw some of my ceramic work. You saw some of my glass work. I've done stained glass, fused glass, and blown glass. I do drawing and painting, crocheting, knitting, beading. I do, you know, rudimentary jewelry work. I do customizing shoes. I do furniture refurbishment. I do like macrame, and like I even like make book covers. Like
amazing.
If there's a thing that exists, I want to try it. And it's again saying yes to yourself and letting yourself try these new strategies and techniques and stuff. And that's, you know, where you get crazy crocheted snakes that are completely unique and different and interesting. So,
So good.
yeah.
I love it.
But
well, we do need to wrap up.
yes,
but
I know we have a lot of talk time, but
so much. Well, and it's so easy to talk to you, and you have such interesting, fun things to say. So thank you so much for being here.
yeah, it was an absolute pleasure.
Good. I will have Alyssa's Etsy store linked in the bio. Please go check it out. Is there anything else that you would like to plug or let people know what you're doing?
Not not anything to plug other than just, I would always encourage you to support local artists if you're ever given the opportunity, whether it's, going to local craft fairs or local artist run events, because we don't get to share our stuff if people don't show up. So, show up for your communities. Don't In a time of fear, don't be afraid to turn to your neighbors and make new friends. Don't separate yourself out from people that you care about. Don't be afraid to ask for help. And if the odds are 1 in a million, why can't you be the one? Always say yes to yourself and just be kind. That's kind of the big things I live my life by, and it makes a huge difference. So I encourage you all to do so. But I think that's all from me, at least.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Alyssa.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, anytime. And thank everybody for listening. If you like the show, please be sure to go rate and review it. And I am starting my Come As You Art events. Well, I started it last month, but I'm continuing them into all the months. Third Thursday of every month. If you want to come create art with me virtually, you can sign up through the link on my website, and all the details are in the show notes. Keep it ugly, everybody. The Ugly Podcast is created by me, Laura Alexander of Scribe and Sunshine. It's produced and sort of edited also by me, and written and directed by absolutely no one. Our theme song was written and produced by the amazing Zoe Tronic. If you like the podcast, be sure to rate and leave a review on your preferred platform and share with the creative people in your life. If you're interested in learning more about what I do, head to scribeandsunshine.com to learn more about my ugly art workshops and my editing services. If you haven't yet today, I dare you to make that thing you've been thinking about making but have been too scared it's gonna be terrible. Make it terrible. And as always, keep it ugly.
You can do it. You can go create. Just get to it. I promise you'll feel great.